Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here again. I am Sharon Kamara, and I'm really excited because today I'm talking with Preston Dennett. Whew, I'm so excited. He is really famous in this world, the world of extraterrestrials, things like that, the paranormal, and the world that I am all about pretty much. So thank you so much for being here, Preston.
Hey, thank you, Sharon. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. So I would like to read your bio, okay?
All right.
I know, right? I'm super impressed, by the way, of course. All right. Preston Dennett began investigating UFOs and the paranormal in 1986 when he discovered that his family, friends, and coworkers were having dramatic, unexplained encounters. Since then, he has interviewed hundreds of witnesses and investigated a wide variety of paranormal phenomena. He is a field investigator for the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, a ghost hunter, a paranormal researcher, and the author of 28 books and more than 100 articles on UFOs and the paranormal. Wow, I'm so impressed. Several of his books have been Amazon UFO bestsellers. His articles have appeared in numerous magazines, including Fate, Atlantis Rising, MUFON UFO Journal, Nexus Paranormal Magazine, UFO Magazine, Phenomena Magazine, Mysteries Magazine, Ufologist, and others. His writing has been translated into several different languages, including German, French, Portuguese, Russian, and Icelandic. He has appeared on numerous radio and television programs, including Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell, Coast to Coast, and also the History Channel's Deep Sea UFOs and UFO Hunters. His research has been presented in the LA Times, the LA Daily News, the Dallas Morning News, and other newspapers. He has taught classes on various paranormal subjects and lectures across the United States. He currently resides in Southern California. And his website is www.prestondennett.weebly.com. And I will also list your books in the description below, and I'll put all that in the description. I'm so excited to talk to you. I don't know where to start. Okay. I really want to talk about out-of-body experiences because I know you're a traveler, a conscious traveler, correct?
That's right. Yep.
Okay.
I love them.
Great. So am I. And it's really difficult for me anyway to find other conscious travelers that are that do this on a regular basis. You know, a lot of people that I come across might have one or two or a few that are kind of random, but it's not something that they dedicate their time to. So I wanted to talk to you about that, Preston. How you started with the out-of-body travel?
Oh, it's really interesting. My mom died tragically, fairly young age 49, of a massive heart attack. And at the time I was a materialist, I would say, profoundly skeptical of anything paranormal, UFOs, absolutely. Life after death, no way. I knew there was no such thing as life after death. I was sure of it. I was wrong. So that's how it sort of began, because it was shortly later, just a couple of months after she died, that I saw her spirit at the service for her, actually. And I thought, a full color apparition right in front of me. And no one else saw it. And I'm like, wow, I must be out of my mind. I am hallucinating. I'm delirious with grief. And I kept it secret. And it was about a year later, around 1986, actually, really precisely the same time I found out UFOs were real, which is another story. But started having dreams where she'd come into my room. And these I would now categorize as lucid dreams, or perhaps pre-lucid, because I felt for sure I was awake. I'd wake up, sit up in bed, and in she'd walk in, smiling, and I'd be like, Mom, you're dead. Oh my God. And she'd just smile and say, no, everything's all right. Not in so many words, but just sort of give me that feeling. And then I'd wake up for real. I thought, oh my gosh, I thought I was awake. And that kept happening for a year. It must have happened 20, 30 times. And it was somewhat disconcerting because I knew it was her. I knew that I was actually seeing her, because there's just a quality to a person's presence when you're next to them. And yet it couldn't be her. There's no such thing as life after death. I could not reconcile this. So I was like being pulled in two different directions. And finally, I'm like, well, I'm going to have to look into dreams a little bit, because I wasn't really a huge dreamer at that time. I sort of average, I guess. I'd occasionally have dreams like everyone, but got real into it. Started writing down all my dreams, started buying all the books on dreams, and which I ended up throwing away most of them, by the way. They were, after studying dreams, I learned a lot more than I think some of these so-called experts. I mean, I was interviewing other people about their dreams as well. I really dived into the deep end with this because I wanted answers. And I discovered lucid dreaming, of course. And I'm like, oh, you can wake up in the dream state. And was having a real hard time trying to do it. I mean, I just could not do it. And then I found Robert Monroe's book. And you've got to know who Robert Monroe is if you're at all into out-of-body experiences. He's he's the guy.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
And I love him because he changed my life. His first book, what was it? Journeys Out of the Body, mm-hmm. was amazing. And I'm like, wow, is this real? This guy is crazy. He's traveling all over the place. He's going to the other side. Since there's life after death, he's proven it. He's appeared as an apparition in front of people. And I'm like, gosh, this sounds amazing. At the end of the book, he gave exercises. I'm like, oh, what? Anyone can do this? Okay. And so I did them. I'm like, let's try this. This sounds really scary, but it sounds even more interesting than scary. So I did them. And these are, as you may know, just relaxation, meditation, visualizations, affirmations, this sort of thing. And they worked immediately. It was amazing. I mean, I did this for maybe a week or two, and my dream recall accelerated intensely. And I started having really strong, vivid, pre-lucid dreams. And I'm saying it took about just under 2 months when I had my first OBE.
Wow.
It was so cool. It was the middle of the day. I was really depressed, because I'm a young man I was like, what? My mom is dead. I was waking up crying, going to sleep crying. It was tough for me because I was a mama's boy. I was 19, but a real young 19. And she was kind of my best friend. And I had 5 brothers and sisters. We were a big family, and all of them were very, analytical and scientific kind of minded. And certainly I was. Then I had my first OBE. I laid down in bed just one afternoon on my stomach, and boom, my body felt super heavy. I was like sinking into the bed. I couldn't move. And then I started to feel what you may know is the vibratory state. Your whole body vibrates like you're being almost an electric shock. That's what Robert Monroe wrote about. He says, oh, you might feel a mild electrical feeling. I thought, mild? Are you kidding? I thought I was being electrocuted. I thought I had stuck my finger in the light socket next to my bed. I'm rationalizing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm dying. And I felt this profound pop and a swoosh, and I'm flying across my room. And I, out of control, flew out of my room, across the hallway and into the bathroom, and stood up and looked in the mirror. And I, of course, wasn't there in the mirror. I couldn't see anything. Later, I would. Actually, I could see myself. But then I didn't. And I just grabbed the counter, and I was thrilled. I'm like, I am doing it. I'm out of my body. This is real. There's life after death. This is unbelievable. I could not believe it. And I was so emotional. I got pulled instantly back into my body. come into my room. I'm like, hey, who's that? There's someone in my room. A short little man. I sensed it was male, but I was having a lot of trouble focusing and seeing clearly. And I lay horizontally in the air over my body and sunk back in and filled it up and woke up. Boy, that was the first one.
That's amazing. Wow. You know, it's funny that my first out of body experiences and why I got interested in them was after my stepfather died.
Oh.
And yeah, and so I needed to know what happens when we die. I was raised Catholic, our family was raised Catholic, and it just didn't make sense to me that we either go to heaven or hell kind of thing, and that's it, you know? So I started actually spontaneously having sleep paralysis. I went through sleep paralysis, which I didn't know what it was at the time, and I thought I was going to die.
Yeah,
And then, yeah.
the sleep paralysis. Yeah. If you do this stuff, you will experience that. It's wild.
Yeah. So let's explain sleep paralysis for people who may not know what it is and might be experiencing it.
Yeah. I mean, this is a well-known phenomena. Your brain actually does release a chemical which renders you paralyzed. So when you're dreaming, you're not sleepwalking and acting out your dreams. Some people have a problem with this, a chemical imbalance, and that's why they sleepwalk. But when you are doing this work, this meditation, and waking up within the dream state, you will feel this paralysis throughout your body. You can't move. And it is disturbing and concerning at first. And you may even sense figures standing around, and because this can be a waking dream. And sometimes there are actual figures. I mean, there are spirits who are around you all the time. Most people aren't aware of it, but they are there. And this has even gotten mixed up with UFO abductions. People are saying, you're just experiencing sleep paralysis. No, I can tell you no for sure on that. And sleep paralysis is just really a part of the OBE experience, the astral travel experience.
Right. Yeah. And so I was, thank you, Preston. That explains it perfectly. And you don't know what's happening. I felt someone sitting on my bed. I felt that someone was sitting on my chest. I couldn't breathe, Well, I was screaming, trying to scream. I couldn't, although I was breathing, but I didn't think I could breathe. I was screaming, trying to for help, and I felt presence in the room, like you say. But what happened with me was I came across an article. This was 20 years ago, and around 1999, I guess. 22 years ago. that explained the correlation between out of body experiences and sleep paralysis. And I'm like, out of body experience? What's that? And so I'm like, okay, well, now I understand what's going on. So I felt that my dad was trying to get me, or I was trying to find him. So I did what you said you were doing. I started reading anything I could about out of body experiences, Monroe, Robert Peterson, and I tried his experience or his exercises every night. I was obsessed with leaving my body. And it took me about a month and a half, something like that, to have that conscious out of body experience. Well, I knew I was out of my body.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how easy it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is a natural human talent. We are all doing it every night. It's a matter of remembering. And if you focus, to me, it's like learning how to ride a bike, learning to play a musical instrument, learning a new computer program. It's right along those lines. And if you devote time and energy and attention to it, it's remarkably easy to do.
It is.
Some people do have a steep learning curve.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, some people do it the first time.
I know, that's crazy. I think I'm going to say younger you are, the less you are attached to fears and the material world, it might be easier.
Yeah,
I kind of feel
fear is, I think, one of the main barriers. People are like, well, that sounds scary. Another is skepticism. They think, oh, only yogis can do that. No,
Yeah.
We're all, I mean, we're all going to have a permanent OBE at some point anyway.
Right. Right.
We
Yeah.
all do it. Yeah. In the
Mhm.
beginning, it was very emotional for me. I had one, this was, I think, my third, where I woke up standing next to my bed and I thought I was dead. I seriously thought that this was
Wow.
the end. And I felt that cold dread, a kind of terror that I've almost never felt before. And boy, I was unhappy. I'm like, oh my God, what have I done? And I dived back into my body, filled it back up. It's a weird feeling. And woke up. I'm like, oh, that was just an OBE. I'm fine. And every time I'd pop, for the first year, my OBEs did not last more than 10 seconds.
Mhm.
I'd pop out and be like, yay, I did it. Whoosh, right back in. I'd pop out again. I did it. Whoosh. Because it's called the emotional body. And,
Yeah.
and once you pop out, you'll see all of these emotions you've ever suppressed come roaring back. For me, it was not fear so much, it was excitement.
Yeah. Same here.
Then I had to deal with gluttony. I mean, I don't have an eating problem by any means, though I feel like I have starved to death in past lives. I don't know. It was just weird. I would create feasts of food and just gorge over and over again. And then I had an anger problem too, apparently. I'm not an angry person, but I would find myself in like a grocery store, which apparently is a thing. I was so shocked to read this in other OBE books that people often find themselves in grocery stores.
Oh, strange. Wow.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
Because here I am in a grocery store and I just tear apart the shelves, throwing things apart and just going nuts. Robert Monroe talked about that. In the beginning, you're almost in a psychotic state because your emotions are so darn strong. And then I had to deal with lust, which was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But yeah, it took me a year to get a handle on this. And finally because then I'd pop out of body and be like flapping my arms. I'm like, I can't move. And I'm like, why is it so dark? I can't see. I can't. So I had to learn how to move and how to see and how to remain conscious. And then I started, like, after a year or two, I'm like, okay, let's explore the house, because it's scary at first. You don't want to go too far out. And I'm flying around the house, and then walking through walls, and oh, it's so beautiful when you're OBE on your out of body, and you pop out through the roof and you float above the house, and it's just gorgeous. The colors, the sense of peace.
Yeah.
Oh man, those early times were so much fun.
Right. I remember trying to go the first time I tried to walk through a solid object, which was our patio door. And my dog would always travel with me.
Oh wow.
And yeah. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make a running start. So I made a running start to get through the patio door, and I went right through it. My dog just went right through it after me. So apparently she was used to doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's fun because sometimes I'll just walk slowly through, and you can feel it. You can actually
feel it.
And sometimes I don't feel it at all. And a few times I'm like going for a running start, and bam, I hit it and I bounce off.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to figure out what's going on there. It has to do with your level of vibration, your level of awareness. If you're at a low vibratory level, sometimes it's hard to get through a wall.
That makes sense.
It was like 3, 4, 5 years into it. I finally had the courage to open my eyes when I did it, because I always close my eyes. I'm like, okay, there's a brick wall. Let's try this and keep your eyes open. And it was weird because you could not only feel it, but you see it. I saw the inside of the wall.
The material. Yeah. I got stuck going through the ceiling and the roof one time.
Yeah, I've had that. I jumped down on a stairwell and I sunk right through the floor, and I got stuck halfway through it. And I laughed uproariously, and that pulled me back in.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest detriments to out-of-body experiences is not being out long enough. As soon as you think about your body or you get excited or something like that, boom, you're back in.
Yeah, people always say, well, aren't you afraid of getting lost? I'm like, no, it's so hard to stay out.
Right.
You've got that silver cord, it'll pull you right back in.
Have you ever seen the silver cord?
Took me a long time because I'm reading about it. I'm like, wow, how come they're all seeing it and I'm not?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
And finally, I'm like, this is ridiculous. I am going to make an effort, because that's what that sort of became my MO. I'd read about it. I'm like, well, this person rescued a lost soul. Let's try that. This person went to a healing temple. This person saw their spirit guides. This person, did this. I want to do that. And so I'm like, okay, let's focus on this. I popped out of body one time and I'm like, what the heck is this? I'm all wrapped up in this hose and it's thick and it's white. And it was, like a fire hose. I'm trying to unwrap myself from it. And I finally, it went right into my body. I'm like, oh, this is the silver cord. So you know what I did? I did something I've never read before. And I still haven't read this from anybody. I dived inside of it.
Oh,
it was just an impulse. And I followed it to the end, which was my mind. And I popped out in this chamber, which was my mind. And it was very poorly lit. and quite vast and filled with junk. But there was the center of it, which was brightly lit. And that was sort of my consciousness. And I'm like, wow, this is my mind. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, this is so cool. And I'm looking at the edges. I'm like, wow, my mind is cluttered. It's filled with stuff. It's big though, but it needs to be cleared out. It was just a really interesting thing that I had not expected to happen.
Oh, that's crazy. Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and more recently, just last month or so, popped out in my living room. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my cord. And I was really looking at it closely because now I'm more advanced, right? And I'm examining it and I'm like, this is actually not a solid single cord. It's a bunch of fibers, which are really tiny. And I'm like picking at it. I'm like, wow, that's really, I could feel it. It was so cool.
You could feel it. What did it feel like?
Like, it's almost hard to describe, like a billion thin, super soft, silky fibers.
Wow.
But very energetic. And glowing bright white silvery light.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's thick. Some people have a tiny little thing, but mine's thick.
Wow, that's cool. Some people have a tiny cord, really? I mean, a thin cord.
Yeah. And people see it differently. I remember Albert Taylor, he was on a mission to see his cord, and he's projecting and he's looking behind him and he sees, the old computer paper where you'd feed your.
Yeah, I remember that. He wrote about that in his book.
Yeah. It looked like computer paper to him.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's very interesting how, because everything can become a little bit symbolic at times, and you kind of look at things through your own belief system.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up. You were talking about in your mind there was clutter, that kind of thing. I've learned along the way, after doing this for 20 years, that, and in our dreams too, right, that we're projecting the people, most of the people, we're projecting situations and things like that. And so I was talking with my guide one time in an out-of-body experience, and I asked him, so how many, and we were in a cafe, we're sitting there at the bar talking, and I'm asking him questions. How many of these people here, of all the people here, how many are not projections? And the place was pretty full. He looks around. First he looks around and he goes like that are not a projection. Right.
Like, meaning they're just a dream figure.
There's only one person here that's not a projection.
And that was you.
That was me.
Yeah, it's wild because I dealt with that. I'm like, huh. And that was often in the lucid dream phase, but you can tell when someone's real. I would fly over to the other side. It was always my goal to meet my mom, and I eventually did.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah.
But my whole family would be there, and I'd be like, huh, Stephen, you're out of body, because you could tell when it's a real person. I always rush up and I touch their face. I'm like, oh, it's so nice to see you. And I'm like, Steven, we're out of body. And he's like, oh yeah, I know. We're in that in-between place, is what do you call it? I'm like, oh, the in-between place. That's interesting. You know you're out of body? He says,
Wow,
yeah.
that's weird.
Yeah.
That's unusual.
And I'm like, okay, well, if you know you're out of body, then I'm gonna you're gonna remember it, right? And he's like, oh no, I'm not there yet. I don't have that ability. I'm not like you. I'm like, well, what do you mean? How can you say that? I mean, we're having a conversation. You know you're out of body right now. It's like, yeah, I know, but I'm not going to remember. And we had an argument. I'm like, of course you'll remember. And he's like, no, I'm not. Shut up. And of course he didn't. And I had the same thing with my sister, Victoria. I'm like, Victoria, it's great to see you. Are you going to remember? She says, no. I'm like, well, how about I create something that you will for sure remember? Because you can create things with your mind. Thought rules down the astral planes. So I created a UFO, and it was a damn good one. It was a beautiful, shiny silver with colored lights. It was gorgeous. And she was impressed. She's like, wow. I'm like, do you think you'll remember that? She says, maybe. And she didn't. She did not remember. Oh, it's frustrating.
It is frustrating. I was going to say that. Yeah, it is hard for me anyway to find people that are aware that they're in the out of body state or dreaming, because I go around doing the same thing. Do you know that you're dreaming? I ask them, are you dead or are you dreaming? And most of them, well, the dead people know what I'm talking about, or the spirit, if I'm in this that type of realm. But dreamers will just, as you know, will just look at you like you have two heads and just keep on going, walking in the zombie state or doing whatever they're doing.
Yep.
One time I did come across a guy who said that he was out of body. Actually, it's been maybe, I'm going to say I could count on my hand how many times I've come across someone who's conscious. And I was so excited, and we exchanged information. I said, okay, when I get back, I want your name, your address, and your phone number. Or at least your phone number. And I got his name, and I got what state he lived in, I believe, but I didn't bring back the rest of the information. It's so hard to bring back that kind of stuff, but I did get his name. But yeah, wow. But that was cool.
Yeah, one time I was flying around, and I'm like, well, I wonder because you often go to the higher realms where it's beautiful, it's garden-like, with light, it's just gorgeous. But I was curious about the lower realms, because Marilyn Hughes, she's a big explorer. She's talking about the hellish realms. Mm-hmm. Gosh, okay, fine, let's do it.
Thank you.
And so I went to this place that was, it's not a lot of nature in these lower realms. It's usually just urban setting. And I'm walking through this kind of mall-like setting, and there's all these people there. And I'm like, wow. And it was dark, and people were kind of pushy and unhappy. And I mean, not all of them. They were kind of clustered at tables talking. And one guy did try to attack me. I'm like, get away, get away. Finally, I'm asking people, have you ever seen a UFO? I'm just talking to people. They're looking at me like I'm crazy. And finally, this little kid, I see him. He looks like a nice little kid. And I'm like, can I ask you a question? He says, sure. I'm like, are you dead? And he gave me this look like, are you an idiot? And he says, we all are. And I'm like, oh, shoot. And so I walked up to another woman because I wanted to confirm, right? I'm like, are you dead? And she gave me that same, like, are you an idiot? And she says, all of us here are dead. Everyone here. And I said, well, I'm not. That was the wrong thing to say. Because she gave me this incredible look of, I don't even know how to describe it, almost anger, almost disbelief. And every head around me, because this was crowded, turned and looked at me glaringly. And they go, oh no, I am leaving now. Bye.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, yeah. I don't know if I don't think I've had any kind of experience like that with anger from a group. I was chased by a woman one time who was trying to shoot me, and I snapped and said, wait a minute, I'm out of body. She can't hurt me. So I turned around and told him, you can't hurt me. Go ahead, shoot me. I don't care. And she was stunned and turned around and left.
Yeah.
But a group of people, that would be pretty crazy. Yeah, that.
Now, one time I popped out of my body here in my house in, Reseda, Southern California, wandering through the house, and I pop out onto the front porch. And I walk through the door, and there's 3 men on the street, and I instantly recognize them as real spirits, earthbound, because they were not nice. These guys were like thugs, murderers, bad people. And they see me and they just radiating evil.
Wow.
And, in the books they say, oh, just radiate love towards them. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because they made a beeline for me. They were coming to harass me. They were just 100 feet away, 50. Well, let me see. Yeah, closer to 50 feet. Because right there in the street in front of my house. And it came rushing towards me, and I'm like, nope. And I turned around and went right back into my body.
Wow.
I'm not dealing with that. No.
That's crazy.
And not the only time I've met hostile entities. One time I was trying to get to the other side, and something grabbed my foot. And it wasn't human, because it had 4 fingers. I could feel 2 fingers on each ankle. And I'm like, and long stick, suckery type fingers. It was weird. And so I reached down and peeled those fingers off, and they were long, kind of, I don't know, like Gollum or something, like frog, or it was weird. And I had to peel them forcefully off my ankle because it was slowing me down. But I generally don't feel fear when I'm out of body, because, like you said, that's how I think that maybe Robert Monroe said this: when you're out of body, you can't be hurt. Don't worry about it. You're not physical.
Exactly. Right.
But still, there'd be times. I remember I would always fly around the telephone wires, because I'm like, I'm not flying through those. That's finally, I'm like, okay, let's just do it. Other people have done it. Let's do it. And I did it, and it went zit, and it all lit up. I'm like, whoa. And now I do it without any problem. I don't really feel it. But yeah, it takes a little getting used to recognize you're not physical.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, every once in a while now, I have to remind myself that I'm not physical, so I don't have to worry about things hurting me or anything like that. I don't really have, you probably may not, but I don't really have I wouldn't say the lower vibrational experiences anymore, where I feel yucky. The only time I've ever felt threatened, besides that woman who wanted to shoot me, was where every time I'd go out, and this was in the beginning, every time I would exit and go out, I was met by these really creepy looking beings, and they were grabbing at me, and their features they were human, but they were all distorted. Their facial features were all distorted, and they were creepy. And I'm going to say maybe 3 times I just brought myself back real quick. And the 4th time I said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I can't explore because they keep greeting me at the door, kind of thing. So I finally realized it. I snapped and said, you know what? You can't hurt me. Wow. So, kind of, and I wasn't angry or anything. I just became aware, you can't hurt me. And as soon as they realized that I wasn't afraid of them, their features changed to normal. And they were nice. They weren't threatening to me or anything like that at all. So I figured that I was working through some kind of fear I had, some latent trauma or whatever it was, I don't know, that I was working through. And as soon as I faced it, they were gone.
Yeah, I remember in the beginning, I'm like, I wonder if I'm dreaming. Maybe I'm making all of this up, even though I knew I wasn't. It was a lot, because I'm like, I'm going out of body, guys. My family's like, Preston's off the deep end. Stop talking about this. Why are UFOs and now this? What is wrong with you? I'm like, no, for real. I am out of body, for real.
Right.
And I could not convince them. And I would appear in front of them. I'd be like, hey, you see me? No, couldn't see me. Because other people are able to do that. I finally was able to do that. Someone did see me.
Oh, that's cool.
But initially I'm like, gosh, I wonder if this is all a dream, because it does feel dreamlike in the beginning. And finally I'm flying around them, and I went far away from my house. Well, not terribly far, but to a place I haven't been before, the LA River. And it's a cemented in river. And I saw this grass. It was growing on the cement. I'm like, that's impossible. This is a projection. This is partially a dream. Maybe it is a dream. I saw the litter, I'm like, well, I know exactly where this is. I'm going back to my body. And I'm going to go here physically. And so I woke up and I, of course, remembered it, which is really hard to do sometimes, but you get good at it. And I'm like, so I made myself a nice cup of strong French roast, drank it, and I'm like, okay, let's do this. Because I was nervous. I'm like, what if it's not real? Oh no, I am losing my mind. And I went over there. It wasn't far away. I could have walked, but I drove. And sure enough, it was just almost exactly like I saw. There was tiny little, like the position of the trash was slightly varying. But wow, what an experience to see something non-physically and then go see it physically. It's like, whoa, that is amazing. I knew then and there, this was real. I was like trying to move objects, couldn't move them.
Yeah, I've tried that too. Yeah,
other-
that's great confirmation. Have you ever done the playing card trick where someone puts the playing card on top of something you can't see physically, and then you fly in the out of body state, you go fly to it to try to read what the card is?
No, but I have tried various confirmations. Like have you ever tried reading out of body? It's not easy.
Forget about it.
And like the figures will transpose, or they'll get little tiny, or it won't make sense. And
it's really difficult to read, and numbers are hard too.
Yeah, I think the best confirmation I ever got was I met this contactee, a UFO contactee. I'd interviewed her. She talked about having out-of-body experiences.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, well, here's someone who might be able to see me, or might be able to visit, because I was visiting a lot of people, and they never remembered. And so I'm like, oh, she lives in Florida, and here I am in California. So I popped out of body. I'm like, let's go see Dolly. That's her name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm flying across the US. The landscape's turning into a blur, and then boom, pop, I'm there. You sort of teleport when it's long distances.
Yeah.
And I appeared in her garage. There was a man in there. I'm like, that's weird. Who are you? And he says, oh, my name's Henry. I'm like, I'm looking for Dolly. And he points, and she's walking in. And she's on the phone. And suddenly she whirls around and looks at me straight in the eye. And says, oh my God, Preston, I cannot talk right now. I'm being robbed. I'm like, oh no. She's a good friend. I was pretty horrified for her. And it pulled me back. And she calls me up the next day, and she's talking, and I'm like, I wonder if she even saw me, because if she's being robbed, she would have brought this up by now.
Yeah.
And she hadn't. And she says, oh, by the way, I saw you last night. I'm like, you did? She says, yeah. She doesn't sleep. She's up all night. And she says, I saw you. And she says, all your hair was back. You look young. I'm like, oh yeah, my hair comes back when I'm out of body. You should see me. I'm buff. I look so gorgeous. Oh,
we all do. I know. I know.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I love it. But she saw me. I'm like, you did? She said, oh yeah, I saw you. And I'm like, well, I saw you. You were on the phone. She's like, yeah, I was on the phone with Rob. That's what I told you. I says, I can't talk now. I'm on the phone with Rob. I'm like, oh, I thought you said I'm being robbed.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So that was absolute confirmation. And turnabout is fair play, because I'm in bed like a week later, and my room fills with light. And I wake up, and there's Dolly standing next to my bed, grinning ear to ear, full color apparition, looking at me like, ha ha. I'm like, Dolly, it's you. And,
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So we talked a little bit before we came on about that we don't really go out of body, right? We're raising our frequency. Can you talk a little bit to that and what your take on that is? Because I totally agree with that.
Yeah, how that all began for me was like, I go out of body and I go to the other side, and I feel real at home there. And I'm like, this is where we actually come from. And it's the superior body. It doesn't age. This is your real body. I'm like, well, this is weird. Maybe I'm not projecting at all. In fact, you're not. Astral projection is a misnomer because you are actually projecting into the physical. That's the projection, not projecting out of your body. It's the opposite direction. And in fact, when you're on the astral planes and you can dart across the whole universe, time and distance mean nothing. So I'm like, God. And when you're in the physical world, then, is there no such thing as distance? No, there isn't. It's an illusion. So you're kind of, when you're walking around and driving, you're not actually moving. You're pulling the universe through you. It's all perception. I started to think more about it. I'm like, okay, so when I'm popping out of body, all our bodies are inextricably connected. You have your physical body, but you also have your etheric body, your astral body, your causal body, your Buddhic body. According to Eastern tradition, there's 7 bodies and variations in between. And so you're never actually leaving your body. You're just transferring your conscious to the next, and they're all inextricably connected. And it's just a matter of raising your vibration, really, is what's happening. But it took me a while to realize this, because I'm like, you'd be out of body and then you're leaving that body and you're leaving the next one, and you're like, what is going on here? It is, but ultimately, I've come to believe that space and time is really just an illusion.
Right.
And the world itself here is largely a hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels real, and it is real. But it's not what people think it is. It's energetic, which is what science actually says. I mean, we know matter is mostly energy.
Yeah. Well, science is catching up to the metaphysical world, I think. Finally, that's and that confirms a lot of what I've been seeing. I had a near-death experience in 2001, and after that, and I started traveling out of body and things like that. Things just started opening up for me. I'm like, whoa! I was in a grocery store in San Antonio when I lived there, and everything, this whole reality of this grocery store, and this was in the physical plane, not in my out of body.
Okay.
In the physical plane, everything disappeared. And I saw the grid. And I knew, yes, I saw the grid. It was blue and green. And it was about 2.5, 3 seconds, which is long enough for you to realize what you're seeing. And then everything is gone. And I'm like, holy moly. And it hit me. This is, and I knew then that we're projecting all of this. This is an illusion. We're holographic. And I've been driving down the road before, and I can tell that everything's a screen, and I'm not really moving. I'm just telling myself I'm moving, and this is just the scenery going by on the screen.
Yeah, it's a very strange feeling. Another weird thing that happened to me with the OBEs is almost every time, not every time, but a lot, I would come back with memory, a dream, a dream memory perhaps of the future. And I have this precognitive dream, or kind of, it's so strange because it almost always happened the next day. I come back and I'd be at work. Suddenly I knew what was going to happen. I'm like, oh, she had a haircut and she did walk in with a haircut. Or I'm like, my boss said he saw a UFO. I had this dream where he walked in and says, I saw a UFO, and described it in detail. And I go to work and in walks my boss. He says, I saw a UFO. And I knew exactly what he was going to say. I dreamt it. And then when that happens, all these little sparkles appear and the world becomes very dreamlike. I call it waking lucidity. When you become lucid in the dream, it's revelatory, it's enlightenment. You're like, wow, this is a dream, and everything sparkles and becomes really super real. And then it would happen when I'm awake, and everything would become super real, but dreamlike. So the dream life would become super real, and the real world would become dreamlike. It was like coming full circle.
That's amazing. I love that.
It was very cool. And the clairvoyance and the telepathy and the precognition is off the charts, and such a great, wonderful benefit of all this. It raises your awareness. Oh my God, it's fun.
Thank you. That was my next point that I wanted to talk to you about is how out-of-body travel and dream lucidity and things like that can help us enhance and raise our frequency in our everyday life, and facilitate spiritual growth, personal growth.
Yeah, and along with that, for sure. First thing it does is it erases your fear of death.
Yeah.
I still don't want to go through the whole dying. That's a little, that sounds a little grim. I'm like, what kind of
the
system
pain
is this? What? We're gonna die? That's who designed this? That's terrible. But then I realized,
which is a lie anyway, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's no such. It's a wrong word. It doesn't make any sense. Dying is more like flying to Hawaii and getting to stay there for as long as you want. It's gorgeous.
I love that.
The best place. It's the best thing that could ever happen to you. I'm in no rush, obviously, because Earth is such a wonderful experience to be able to go through.
Right.
But yeah, that's the first thing that really changed. I'm like, fear started to leave me, because when my mom died, I was just encased in fear. I was having a real hard time with it. And then I started to get all this psychic awareness, which is so much fun to say to someone, this is going to happen. And then it happens and they give you this look like, how did you know? I'm like, I'm telling you, it's out of body. You should try this. I tell everyone, and they're like, you're nuts. I'm like, no. You've heard of near-death experiences. I've been down that tunnel. You can do this too. I've taught people how to do it. And
nice.
And when you do this, you start remembering all your past lives, a lot of them. And I'm like, oh, well, this is why I'm obsessed with the Holocaust. I know I died. It was horrifying. Or this is why I'm so obsessed with shipwrecks, because it turns out I was a pirate. Or this is why I'm like afraid of starving to death, because I'd starved to death over and over again. Oh, this is why I love shamanism. I had a lifetime as a Native American, and all this stuff. Like, I'm like, wow, this is amazing. I once saw a psychic, and the first thing out of her mouth was, you have recalled like 30 past lives, haven't you? And I'm like, yeah, I sure have. My mother's like, what's with you and these shipwrecks? I'm like, you tell me. I've got every book on shipwrecks. She's like, you would be really good at out-of-body experiences. I laughed because I just started doing it. Yeah, the
that's a funny thing.
Is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely. I've been gifted, or that's one of my abilities, is to be able to see past lives for clients and things like that. But I had to see them for myself first. And that was through my meditations, is how I was able to see most of my, the lifetimes that I was able to clear. Yeah. As far as the precognition thing, I want to, what came to mind is I'm noticing also a lot more lately that I'm having precog dreams or out-of-body experiences, and they seem to be coming together closer and closer, where at the time you don't really realize it, maybe that it's precog. Mine doesn't necessarily have, my only family is my sister here, and my my immediate family is my boyfriend, but you don't really have, I noticed that I don't really have those types of precog experiences. It's more on a global area, and things start coming together quicker and quicker.
Yeah, I've had
as we raise in frequency, maybe.
Some are very personal, like a gift. I'll know what my gift is going to be, but some are like, well, there's going to be a plane crash. I just know. I knew there was going to be a horrific water slide accident. I'm like, oh no. I knew that there was going to be a terrorist attack on a school. I just knew it. And I'm like, gosh, where, I don't even know where this is going to. And when this whole pandemic thing started to hit, the month or two before, I was like crying. I'm like, why am I so upset? I better get some food. And I stocked up on food right before the grocery store shelves were cleared out.
Wow. Yeah.
So little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I'm like, well, I've got this intuition and I don't act in it. Boy, do I regret it. Like, darn it. We always do. No, I got a speeding, or a parking ticket. I'm like, if I park here, I'm going to get a ticket. I'm like, no, I won't. No. I did.
I know, we do. Yeah, I can definitely attest to that. If we don't listen to our intuition, I imagine every person watching this now would agree that we end up paying for it if we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. During your out of bodies, have you ever, and then we'll move on to other subjects, but have you ever seen yourself as an extraterrestrial? Or have you seen any extraterrestrials in your out of bodies? I'm curious.
Yes and yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
good.
Yeah. Every I've seen all kinds of stuff. I mean, we've only touched the surface.
I
Oh
know.
my
Yeah.
gosh. I mean, I've been to healing temples. I've met my spirit guides. I've gone to the moon. I mean, I've done all kinds
Other
of stuff.
planets. Nice.
Yeah. And but
Yeah.
yeah, I saw my pets. Once my pet came up to me like, "Hi, Preston." I'm like, "Whoa, pets can talk." I finally read that. Yeah, that does happen. But yeah, I have seen myself because as an alien in a past life with weird eyes, and I was a humanoid, and once like a reptilian type of being.
I've seen myself as a
and
reptilian type. Yeah.
and
A couple times.
once I found myself on board a UFO, and there was, what's her name, Hasha Hanti. She wrote a book on near-death experiences. She's a Native American. I'm looking at her, I'm like, "What are you doing?" "Oh my God, we're in a UFO." And another time I want to see an alien. An alien appeared in front of me.
What type of alien?
Weird looking. It wasn't a gray or anything.
Mhm.
Sort of a dog-like snout and knees that bent backwards. And
Oh, weird. Yeah.
another time I'm flying to the other side, and you go, when I do that, I go through this cloudy realm, right? And then I pop out into what I would call the gardens, or the higher realm, the heavenly realms. I'm not religious,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
that's the best description because they're just gorgeous
Right.
and filled
Yeah.
with love, and the source is there. But I'm getting through this cloudy area. It's taking a little while. And I'm like, what is that up ahead? I saw two little dark spots. And I got closer because I'm booking, I'm moving fast. I realized, oh, well, that looks like a person's eyes, but that's not normal because these are big dark eyes, almond shaped. And then boom, I'm right next to a gray alien, and he's looking at me. And I mean, when I say right next to it, I went right by him, like a foot or two away, and he turns and he watches me go by. My heart jumps up. I'm like, "Whoa," because you don't expect that. And now I regret not stopping and saying, hey, little guy, what's up?" But it was a shock. And man, oh man,
Yeah.
I did not expect that.
That's crazy. I ended up being on a ship or someplace, I don't know where it was. It felt like a ship or a planet, I don't know, of gray-like beings. And they were wearing gray robes. They were shorter than me. And I recognized them and they recognized me and they said, "Welcome. How is your Earth experience?" And I was letting them know about it. And I said, "Well, it's challenging, but it has its rewards." And I was letting them know I felt that I hadn't been back to report in quite a while. And so there was a bunch of them there and they felt they were very curious. Their faces were very deadpan, no emotion, but they were very curious about Earth. And then when I ended up coming back to my body after a little while, and I'm gonna say, I was probably out about 10 minutes, which is a long time for an out of body experience.
Uh,
And I was so disappointed because I thought that I was finished and I was there. I was one of them, and I thought I was back with them. You know what I mean? I had a life experience with them, and so it was like a home for me. And I was really, not that I don't love my life here on Earth, but I was just still in that mindset of that being. And I was really, really disappointed. I'm like,
yeah.
oh, I'm back here.
It's like
I
living.
mean,
It's like living two worlds. There's been
mhm,
times I'm out of body and I'm there with my mom, and I'm like, wow, I thought you were dead. And I
yeah,
start to forget my Earth life, and I'm up there and I'm like having a good time, and then it's time to go, and I'm like, what do you mean? And then boom, I'm back on Earth. I'm like, oh my gosh,
right.
I'm back on Earth now.
Yeah, it's a letdown. Not that we don't love it here, but I asked my guide one time, "Can I stay here with you? Can I just stay?" And he said, "No, you're not done yet. You're 2/3 of the way through, 2/3 of the way finished." I'm like, oh man, that means another 30 years.
Yeah, people talk about the dangers, you'll get possessed, don't do that. I'm like, no, I have searched all the literature for any real dangers, and I couldn't find almost anything about it. Yes,
Yeah.
you can occasionally be attacked by hostile entities. That's the worst, but it just pulls you back into your body. And what I found was the opposite. I found 20 cases of people who've been physically healed
Yes.
of chronic illness or cuts and bruises, colds,
Hmm.
multiple sclerosis, sarcoidosis, liver disease. You can get physically healed. Oh, the stuff you can do. It's so wonderful. I
Yeah.
cannot recommend it enough.
Same
really
here.
can't.
Well, Frederick Ardana, I think it's Ardana, in the book we were talking about before we came on, talks about that. And he doesn't claim to heal her, but he talks about where his wife was diagnosed with cancerous nodules on her throat. And he left his body, and had no intention. He didn't even know what he was doing it, but he was in his higher body. So he just started sending white light to her throat. And also his dog was diagnosed with a terminal illness at the same time. And so he would send white light to his wife's throat and white light to his dog. And I think the vet said his dog had 2 weeks to live or something like that. Well, after he did that for a while, when his wife went to the doctor for her checkup or whatever they were going to do, all of the nodules except one were gone, disappeared.
Wow.
Disappeared. And his dog lived a couple more years.
See, there you go.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember being taken to heal people occasionally here and there. And
That's cool.
one time I was at a bar with this girl who was a contactee, a good
Mhm.
friend.
Uh-huh.
We weren't dating or anything, but she's on the bar stool, and I decided to just spontaneously give her a massage. Just need her shoulders, just a kind gesture.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to put white light into her just for fun. And so I visualized white light, and I put in, she's super conscious. She's amazing. This girl is amazing psychically and contactee wise. And she leaps off the bar stool and whirls around me angrily. It's like, whoa, if you're going to pound me with healing energy, you have to let me know. I'm like, you felt that? She's like, yes, I felt that. And it was so cool because just a few weeks or around that time, I was at a party at, a family party. The whole family was there and friends. And my dad brought up this battery detector with 2 separate leads. He says, did you know your hands have voltage? I'm like, really? He's like, yeah, I'll show you. You can hold the battery leads and it registers voltage. And I'm like, wow. And I started going through everyone to see what their voltage was. And they were all the same. It will go up about, an eighth. And I did my sister, who was a year apart from me, a year and 4 days. We're almost twins. And hers went up quite a bit more. I'm like, wow, do me. And it went zoom. I'm like, whoa. And they're like, oh, your hands are sweaty. I'm like, okay, well, I washed my hands. I dried them off. I'm like, do it again. And whoosh. I'm like, wow, my hands had twice the voltage of anyone there, twice.
Oh, that's awesome. I don't doubt it. Yeah, that's crazy.
I'm sure it's the OBEs. I'm sure of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and you're in that realm.
Yeah, this is another reason we should do it.
I know, right? Can't stress it enough. I mean, and William Buhlman, of course, you know him. He talks about that too, that it's, I actually have a quote on one of my pages, that's the best way to out-of-body experiences. Conscious travel, consciously, is the best way to escape the labyrinth of karma or whatever it is. I forget of the earth plane.
Yeah. Now when I go out of body, the first thing I do is stop and meditate and do Buhlman's exercises. Clarity.
Yes.
Full consciousness, raise awareness, until I'm absolutely awake. You can fall out of it easily.
Oh, really easily. And that's what I do too. I use that clarity now, awareness now. Yeah. And I did that last time. And I actually, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, I had an out of body where I ended up in the womb as a fetus. And I didn't realize that I was a fetus, but I was affirming clarity now. And then I realized, and I was trying to move my hand up to my mouth to suck on my thumb in the womb. And I was frustrated. And I was sending, this is the really cool part, I was sending a telepathic, that was message to my mother, help me, tell me how to do this, help me do this. There was that connection between me and my mother. And I was frustrated because I wasn't getting the information back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was awareness, but it was clarity now that helped me be aware of that, because it was really a weird surroundings, as you can imagine.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah.
My friend Roger died of alcoholism.
Mm.
And after he died, I popped out of body and I saw him in the lowest realm, pure darkness. He was upset and screaming.
Wow.
I'm like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna help you. I'm gonna help you. You're gonna be okay. And I came back and I sent him love, 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 and told everyone to do it. And I went back and I found him. He was on a higher realm.
Nice.
And he spoke out loud. Usually it's very telepathic, but he spoke out loud and said, "Thanks for all the love bombs."
Oh,
It's really
that's
cool.
nice.
And he finally
Yeah,
did make it to the higher realms.
that's cool. Yeah. I've been able to do spirit rescue in an out of body state. And when I first started, before I started doing mediumship, I used out of body experiences to check on people's loved ones, to see where they were, how they were in the out of body state, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And bring back information. So I could talk about out of body experiences with you all day. So, so with just one more question about for the audience. I mean, you and I know about this, and we know that we can't be hurt in the out of body state. Do people need to? How could people maybe get through their fears, or what's the best way to do that? You teach about it, so what's the best way, in your estimation, how to do that?
Yeah, I think just recognize that the universe is a safe place, that we are in fact immortal. The first OBE will teach you that immediately. And fear is a lie. It's something we're taught. It's being perpetrated. It's a crime being perpetrated on all humanity.
Yeah.
It's not true. There is nothing to fear. Yes, experiences can be unpleasant, but ultimately, you have absolutely nothing to worry about. You will be fine no matter what happens. And every so-called, quote, horrific experience has an incredible silver lining. These are all experiences we've chosen to help us wake up and remember who we truly are. And yeah, I just recommend meditating. Recognize that we all have spirit guides around us at all times. You are already going out of body. You're already doing it. It's as safe as sleeping. It really, really is. And the fun of flying, the reunions you can have with your deceased loved ones, what it's like to meet a spiritual master and be in the presence of an actual enlightened being will drop you to the floor with joy. And I mean, don't get me started, Sharon, because I will go on forever. It is the best
That's
thing
okay.
ever. Do it. You can thank me later, but do it.
Yeah.
Try it. Don't believe me. Do it yourself. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It is amazing. It is amazing, definitely. So, oh, we didn't talk about astral lovers.
Oh no, gosh, and that's such a fun part of this.
I know, right?
Because Robert Monroe talked about this, come upon like this whole sex scene and be like, no, I'm not doing this. And I'm like, oh, are you kidding? I am doing this. And I don't want to get into the lurid details, but
Yeah.
the fact is you can have any experience you want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. And you can, create projections, or you can do it with real people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a much cleaner type of experience than perhaps here on Earth, where it can get messy and awkward.
Yeah.
But boy, I loved it. And I don't do that so much now, because you get pulled to the higher realms and you can sort of meld energies there, and it's the same.
Right. Which is, it's emerging. Yeah.
Yeah, but Patricia Garfield talked about that. There's a very strong element of sexual energy to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's enormous fun. I loved it. I loved it so much.
It is. I actually have memory of another life there with a mate, and a life that we have together. And so that's part of it. the merging, the lovemaking, all of it. And we're working together in the higher planes and doing what we do to help the planet or whatever that is. And so it's another life where we all have parallel lives, and we start to remember those, right, as we move up higher and higher.
Yeah.
And what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think people should worry about like, oh, I'm going to die, I'm not going to be able to experience things. Oh, you're going to experience a lot more and better.
Yes.
And everything
Yes.
is much better there. The colors, you can eat, if you want to have food, you can eat there. I create feasts, chicken nuggets, sour cream and onion potato chips, Neapolitan ice cream. Oh,
That's one thing I don't do. I don't think about food when I'm there. Wish I could bring that here, but and you know about Jürgen Zewey and his books, right? Jürgen Zewey,
I don't think so.
Multi-dimensional man.
Oh,
I'm
not sure I've read that.
Oh yeah, you have to read his books. The one that that's really cool. Well, they're all cool. He has 3 books, I believe. The one that's really cool is how to enjoy life when you're dead.
Oh,
yeah,
lovely title.
Vistas of Infinity is the main title, and then how to enjoy life when you're dead. I think you will really, really enjoy it. He started with his out of bodies in the meditative state. I do it in the in-between state, the twilight state, and I'm able to do that. But I think you'll really love his work. He talks about how when you die, there's, a lot of people don't understand we can move up higher. And William Buhlman, I think, talks about this too, right? Where we get stuck in these, and Robert Monroe, in these belief system territories.
Yep.
And we don't realize that we can still work on our spiritual growth. We can still move up higher. We can move back and forth as long as we, we have that awareness, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm taking people out of the lower realm sometimes. I was in another hellish realm just recently. I saw this beautiful black man. He was just radiating light. He looked happy. I'm like, how would you like to go to the higher realms? He's like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's easy. Just take my hand. He's another guy who's kind of hesitant. I'm like, no, really, I'll take you there.
Wow.
And
Nice.
boom, off we went. And
very cool.
He was very happy about it. So was
That's
I.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah. But Jürgen Zewey talks about where in his out of bodies he chants in his out of body, and that lifts him up. And I tried it, and it works.
Yeah.
He ohms. Yeah.
I've done some mantras. It's
Have you?
Wild. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, there's some powerful mantras that you can say.
Yeah.
That's another subject.
That's cool. So you talked about that we've been lied to for so long, and humanity has been you probably would agree that we're waking up out of this dream, right? Slowly but surely. So let's talk a little bit about the pineal gland and maybe how important that is for our awakening.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research into it, and I think people have come to recognize that this little pineal gland in our brain is how we sort of interface with the other side, and it's the center of so-called psychic powers. And for a lot of people, it's become calcified with fluoride and drugs and stuff. And so, if you want to start waking up psychically, this is one of the reasons people will stop eating meat or drinking fluoride water or have a raw food diet. And also, there's all sorts of things you can do to sort of purify yourself, but this pineal gland apparently is part of all of this. But I don't know, because there are a lot of people who have OBEs as a result of a drug overdose, mm-hmm. or too much alcohol. And I've had OBEs under the influence of alcohol. It's not, I don't drink at all now, but there was a time mm-hmm. where I enjoyed a drink every now and then. And I thought, well, let's try it. I'm feeling a little tipsy. I wonder if I can still do it. Yeah, you can. It's not as easy though. Yeah. But yeah, the pineal gland is definitely a part of all this, I think.
Right. I kind of see what I understand about the pineal gland too is, that's great. Is it's pine cone shaped, right? And it has crystals in it that refract light, or like our eyes, cones within the gland. I see it as our projector, that type of thing. And so when I know 20 years ago, I was being guided to fast and drink tons and tons and tons of water, which I did. My clairvoyance was as clear as this when I was doing that.
Wow.
So what we've, and like you were saying, I think that our diet and our dehydration has a lot to do with why the pineal gland may not be working properly, where we don't have that inner vision sometimes,
the inner
the
senses.
average person.
Because I remember when I was doing the out of body, one time I'm laying there in bed and I'm like, well, I can see the room. I thought my eyes were closed and I assumed I had opened my eyes, but no. And then I opened my eyes. I'm like, oh, and it kept happening. I thought, well, I must have really thin eyelids. What I thought for a while until I realized, I'm like, oh no, these are my inner senses.
You phased out. Yeah.
And
right.
Because you can hear with your inner senses. That's, I'd be like in another room. Actually, I was on the bottom of my condo building and I heard my phone ringing, which is impossible because it's, 60 units away. And I'm like, wow, my phone is ringing. And I bet it's Roger, my friend, who passed away.
Yeah.
And it was. I went running up there and just caught him leaving a message.
That's so cool.
I know, I
love those. Yeah, because wouldn't you agree, Preston? That's really that's our natural state. We're in our unnatural state when we're not connected to our inner senses.
Yeah, people talk about superhuman abilities. I'm like, well, yeah, they're super and they are human, but they are not supernatural. It is natural. That is who we're supposed to be.
Right.
We're a very telepathic species. We are all interconnected. We are all one, and people have a telepathy, but it's compartmentalized. And occasionally it breaks through, and people are like, "Oh, I was just thinking that when you called." But you can see this, and when people become resonating with each other in a concert, perhaps, or a world event, and everyone's grieving and everyone's on the same page. It's because we are absolutely one. It's wild. You come back from an out-of-body experience and you're like, oh my gosh, who am I? I'm feeling your feelings so strongly that I can barely differentiate it at times. It's amazing.
Yeah, that reminds me of my first profound out-of-body experience. In the beginning, because what I would do, I'm sure you maybe do this, is as soon as you leave your body, because I'll just sit up now, I'll just sit up out of my body. Sometimes it's hard to tell if I'm out of body, so I jump up to see if I'm floating. Okay, then I know I'm out of body. And I was moving away from my body because it'll pull you back in very quickly if you don't move away from it. And I had this sense, the intuition, to turn around and look at my body. I was at that time I was sleeping by myself and I was alone in the bed, and I could see my body in the bed, and I saw blonde hair with the covers, and I'm like, who is that? It took me a minute to realize that was my body, and I didn't realize that was my body. And it hit me. I know it hit me. Wait a minute, this is me. This light right here, because I looked and I saw light. This is me. That body is not me. It was very profound for me because we're so attached to our bodies as who we are, right? And we define ourselves a lot by our bodies. That was huge for me to realize, oh my gosh, that body is just, in my mind, I called it a bag of bones.
Yeah. Robert Bruce talks about when you're out of body, that you can disappear, your body disappears and you become a ball of light. He says, if you stare at your hands, they'll disappear. I'm like, well, you're wrong. I've stared at my hands and they're unblemished and they look great. But I did his exercise and sure enough, they disappeared and I became a ball of light.
Nice. Yeah. So yeah, it's when we realize that, well, first of all, we don't die. When the body is gone, we don't die. We just turn back into light. We move back into light. But that was really profound for me. So on to other subjects, because I want to get in as much as I can with you, because you have such a vast expanse of knowledge. with free energy and med beds in our lifetime, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that we're going to have this in our lifetime? Well, your
I
lifetime. I'm older than you.
I sure hope so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of technology that's being withheld from us. I mean, we know this. If you look into it, it's shocking. Of course, I'm really into UFOs, written a bunch of books on that. And I think the crash retrieval phenomena is absolutely real. You know, Roswell did happen, and it's not just Roswell. It's a bunch of them, hundreds. And these ETs have incredible healing technology. I wrote a book, The Healing Power of UFOs, and documented more than 300 cases of people who've been healed of, you name it, from anything from heart disease, cancer, AIDS, tuberculosis, diphtheria. I mean, it's a long list. Liver disease, kidney stones, cuts, bruises, fevers, colds, all of it. And this technology has been, taken and is being used by our military. We have whistleblowers saying this. We have this technology. And no, I don't think our government is going to willingly release this because of the pharmaceutical industry has made illness a business. And they're making billions of dollars on sleep aids and Band-Aids and pain relievers and, all these drugs. It's insane. This should not be a business. That makes zero sense. And I don't know how easy it's going to be for us to transform society into getting this technology out there. And it's the same with free energy. The oil industry, our world is choked with greed and corruption. And that's what I love right now, is people have woken up. They're like, what? Our leaders don't have our best interests in mind? Could that possibly be true?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possibly true. There is a UFO cover-up too. This is our own tax dollars at work. This is not speculation. This is proved through the Freedom of Information Act documents. We know this for sure. So I am not, I'm a super optimistic guy, but I don't think our governments are going to come clean willingly, I should say. I think disclosure will happen. I think free energy will come out because the ETs are going to make sure they are taking people to the engine room and showing them how to build free energy motors. And people are doing this all across the world. It's going to happen, but our governments are going to they're being dragged into this kicking and screaming. And that's why we have disclosure right now. They have no choice. If they don't start disclosing, they're going to lose all control over this phenomenon, our perception of it, and they don't want that. They want control. That's everything they're about.
They've had it for so long. It's time.
Yeah, this is the highest levels, by the way, the military industrial complex and industry. This is not necessarily even presidents or senators or governors or representatives. This is more what we would think of as the 1%ers, the people who are behind the scenes who we probably don't even know. I hate that word conspiracy but it's true. It's
what we might
true.
call the cabal or the dark elite or something like that have big,
we know that 90 to 95, 99% of the wealth is owned by this 1%. That's ridiculous. That makes zero sense.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful ultimately that we're going to be just fine, because love is a very powerful force. And that's what a gray alien told Betty Andreasson. Love is the answer for humankind.
Yeah.
Grays are not demons, for all those who think they might be.
No.
They're not. I researched that in depth. Ghosts, demons, channeling, multiple personalities. I looked into all of it, near-death experiences. And these are separate phenomena. And the ETs are not here to hurt us. They've been around for millennia. They are good news for us. Healing is one of their missions. Waking us up is another major mission. Warning us that we're destroying our planet is another major. That's their agenda. And if we're going to have open official contact at some point with ETs, with all of humanity, that is coming. Disclosure is coming. Yes, the medical, free energy, healing technology, all of this will become a part of this world. And it wouldn't surprise me a bit if it's soon, our generation. I just don't think this can go on much longer. The divisiveness, greed, and corruption that's choking our planet will not and cannot continue. It's not tenable. We can't survive it. So either it's all going to go to south real fast, or we're going to fix it. We're at that point right now. It's got to go one way or the other. And I'm real hopeful that love, people will wake up. It might take a huge traumatic event, but we're going to come together in love and truth and let love and knowledge and truth guide our every action. There is no difference between us, whether you're black or white or Republican or Democrat or, male or female or old or fat or skinny or any of it. We're all autonomous entities who truly love each other.
Yeah. And thank you, Preston. That's said a lot. Definitely what I've been being told and thinking about too. And would you agree that the extraterrestrials that are here to help us and want us to move up and want us to grow up or move forward in our spiritual progress, which I feel very strongly we've been stopped from growing for a very long time. They're here to guide us, but we have to do it. Right?
Yeah, exactly. People are like, well, if they have that healing technology, why aren't they healing everybody? I'm like, well, they're healing an awful lot of people. They are. But no, can you imagine what would happen if they just says, here's this healing technology to our world leaders? We would instantly have overpopulation and wars with incredible technology. It would be such bad news for us. And we wouldn't learn. We wouldn't solve our own problems. We have to solve our own problems. They're not going to cure someone of paralysis if they came down to learn the lesson of what it means to be in a wheelchair. This is, they respect our own free will, but they are helping people who help others. The people who are having contact are the people who are doing really good work for humanity. They're social workers, they're artists, they're musicians, they're doctors, they're teachers, they're police officers, they are environmentalists. These are the people who are having contact. The contactees are the nicest people. They're such good people.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
No, I wanted to touch on when you said that extraterrestrials do heal, and I've been healed by my gray peeps many times from childhood on up. That for me, they're not bad guys. I do understand. Now, this is just what I understand. There are some grays that are not good, that are working with, or were working with other not good extraterrestrials that have kept, our planet enslaved, or helped to, or started keeping our planet enslaved, and then using humans maybe as the puppets. I don't know. These are just things that I've learned. But my grays, my peeps, I call them my caretakers, have helped me tremendously. They saved my life more than once, many times as a child.
I think that's more the rule than the exception.
Definitely.
Some people do have traumatic experiences, and there are some people who will be like, oh my God, this scared the living daylights out of me. They weren't very emotional, I don't think, and I was being physically examined by these bug-like guys, and they kidnapped me out of my room, and I hate this, and I've got PTSD, and I'm having nightmares, and I want it to stop. This is bad. They're demonic. I'm like, hold on, take a breath. What actually happened to you? Well, they examined me. I'm like, okay. Did they hurt? Well, yeah, it hurt. I'm like, okay. Have you had any unexplained healings? Well, yeah. I'm like, okay. Did they give you any messages? Yeah, they did, actually. They warned me about, I'm like, let's look at this real objectively. Because what I've seen is people, it can be very traumatic in the beginning. And if you have a very strong fear response, you're not perceiving clearly. because no one is perceiving clearly when you're in
Mhm.
terror.
Mhm.
And it can start out very scary. But if people who face their encounters head on and explore them and like, I want to know who these guys are and why they're here and what they're doing to me, usually come around. And this is what I've seen over and over and over and over again. It's not just me. I would point to the research of Barbara Lamb, Dolores Cannon, and John Mack, and a lot of the other major researchers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're all our space brothers, because they're not. There is a wide universe, and I think some of these guys might not have our best interests in mind, but that's pretty darn rare. And the worst, I never get accounts of sadism ever, or torture, or evil ETs going, I want to hurt you. No, that's not their agenda. And they will, leave people alone. If you tell them flat out, go away, that usually can stop an encounter. Not usually, but
Wow.
often.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do know people who's had health suffer, and I think there is an evil force on our planet. I mean, you can tell there is.
Yeah, totally.
But by and large, I don't think we have anything to worry about. They have been around for millennia. Our relationship to these guys is much closer. We are not alone in this universe. It's filled with humanoids, filled. And they are visiting us on a very wide scale basis. We don't have to worry. If you look at the evidence,
Right.
it becomes clear they are uplifting us. They are taking care of us. They are very worried about our war. That's the number one message. Your warlike ways are destroying yourself.
Yeah.
The nuclear proliferation has to stop. Why are you polluting your planet? That's the number one message. And one more thing real quick is,
sure,
people who are having these onboard experiences come away spiritually enlightened, flat out transformed. They can do hands-on healing. They start having out-of-body experiences, past life recall, channeling, all kinds of physically levitating. That was something I recently discovered. A number of contactees told me they had physical levitation experiences.
nice.
So they are trying their best to wake us up to our abilities to do telepathy, clairvoyance, precognition, all the stuff we can naturally do. And they'll tell people flat out, this is our gift to you, for what you have given to us, because they do have another agenda where they take genetic material and are creating, reinvigorating their own genetics.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely an agenda.
Yeah. Have you come across any of the hybrid people who are involved in the hybrid program?
Yes. That's a fairly consistent feature of these experiences. Yeah, one lady, she's went through the whole thing with that, and she's like, why are you taking me? I said, well, we are interested in your genetics. We are trying to reintroduce emotions. We have suffered terrible genetic damage. And she's like, are you taking over our planet? And we're like, no, we have zero interest in your planet. You guys are far too emotional and aggressive. And your planet is very crowded and polluted. We have no interest in your planet. She had a long conversation with the gray. He says, my name is Sen.
That's what he told her. The gray said his name was Sen, or him or her. Okay.
Yeah, him.
Yeah.
He's like, are you my son? He's like, well, no, not like you would think of it. You did not give birth to me, but I do have your genetics. We used your genetics to create me, because she had started meditating. She had went through the whole trauma. She was having nightmares, a terrible childhood. She was unhappy. And now she's 180 degrees on the other side. She's like, no. She said, I have no illness. My children are incredibly healthy. She's super aware, very psychic.
Nice. I met my granddaughter recently on one of the ships at from the program. Yeah. And she was quite the hybrid between my genetics, my daughter, who was part gray and part human, and she was also had a elemental type of bloodline in her, genetics in her, so that when she did, we had that conversation of coming to the planet because she had elemental ears. Yeah, and she was about 5 years old, And so we had this, I was having a conversation with people in the living quarters where I went about how she would stick out too much on the planet. So it wasn't time for her to be able to, come down here. We were just having that casual conversation about her, and she showed me that she could levitate.
Wow.
Yeah. It was amazing.
I constantly dream I've discovered levitation and then I wake up. But yeah, I've had a lot of UFO sightings. I did have a missing time encounter.
I wanted to ask you that. Yeah.
I've held babies that I'm like,
Nice.
Which I love doing, but I'm dreaming I'm on board UFOs. I'm not like a fully conscious contactee, but I've come to realize that I am. And here's another weird thing I just have to say. You look so darn familiar to me. Gosh, do I know you? We've never met before.
I know. I was thinking the same thing.
I keep looking at you. I'm like, where have I met you?
I know we've talked before.
It feels like it because I feel like I know you.
Yeah. I'm probably on the ships or something. Who knows?
Boy, I sure do wonder because I've had that before. I'll come upon a person like, sorry, have we met before? And she's looking at me like, gosh, I do think you look familiar.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. I believe a lot more people are having contact or having experiences than we would think, don't you?
Oh yeah, I've had some contactees I've interviewed said, "Oh, I saw you on the ship, by the way."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What?" And one guy, one lady was guided to me. She says, "The Greys brought me to you." And then another lady said the same thing. And then I got a call from this guy in England. He says, "Are you Preston Dennett?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He says, "Well, my Greys came and they said you need to call Preston Dennett." And I'm like, "Wait, what?" He says, "Yeah, they said your name." And I didn't know who you were. And
Oh,
I looked you up, and it turns out you are a guy. And, you're researching this, and they want me to talk to you.
That's cool.
I'm like, oh my God, the Greys know about me. Ah.
Of course they do. You've written 36 books.
Yeah, they might be doing really well on other planets.
Well, it looks like you're doing really well here.
But I hope so. Yeah.
No, totally. I want to thank you so much for your work. And hey, I'd like to have a conversation with you again like this if you're up for it. There's a lot we can cover. Okay.
Oh yeah, we didn't talk at all about schoolyard encounters.
I know.
Or so USOs, or really, we didn't even get into the healing cases.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
All kinds of stuff. I wrote a book on drive-in. What it's called, UFOs at the drive-in.
Oh wow. Oh, that's cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah, because you're sitting outside. Why not? Totally. So I check out Preston's books. I have his book here. Not from here. This is volume 1, right? And your sister-in-law does the art. I just love that.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's 3 other volumes, working on volume 4. It's almost done.
Are you? Okay, cool. Yeah, I love this. And I did meet you at Contact in the Desert. Of course, that was a couple of years ago, but we just spoke briefly. But
maybe that's it then. Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. But I'm sure we've talked on ships. There's a lot of people that I recognize from the ships myself. Did you ever have any memory or any out-of-body experiences or something where you're sitting there like in a curved room on curved seats with people and you're just talking about this kind of stuff or what's going on the planet or things like that?
Yeah, I have. I sure have. And in walks this 9-foot tall guy. And I'm like looking up and I'm like, you're amazing. He's wearing a white jumpsuit and he's 9 feet tall, maybe 8, 9. I mean, at that height, who cares? I'm like looking up and I'm like, oh my God, I think I love you. You're amazing. And he gave me a little tour of the it had rounded.
Nice.
It was gray walls, gray steel with rounds right up into the floor, rounds up into this wall, rounds up into the ceiling.
Yeah.
And you can see outside through transparent sections.
Yes.
And all the details. I'm like, yep, read about this. Oh my God, I'm on board a UFO.
Yeah.
But it was dreamlike for me. It was not fully conscious.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting there.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
I'm getting there, is what I'm saying.
I think that what I've been told with my peeps is that it's a process, right? That the awareness comes to us slowly but surely. I'm working on bringing more details into my memories now too, and being more conscious in these travels, because I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with it, with wanting to know my multidimensional selves.
Yeah, me too. I am
Yeah.
getting impatient, but that's all right. I'm on a mission.
Yeah.
It's important that I concentrate on what I always knew, that I was going to be a writer. I knew I was going to tell fantastic stories.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
knew it from a very young age.
I need advice on how to finish a book. I've started 3 books and have not finished any of them.
Oh, I'm happy to help. Yeah, it's the beginning and the muddle in the end. Yeah, because it's very easy to get stopped.
Stop. Yeah.
Yeah, there are definite techniques. Just work on the
Okay.
part that's bringing you the most excitement.
Okay.
Write and jump to the end and write the ending. Write the conclusion chapter, and then you can start stitching it all together.
Nice.
But ultimately,
I like that.
it's just a
Yeah.
matter of putting that butt in the seat and getting it done.
Yes, I know. I'm taking some time here after Thanksgiving, a few days to myself, and that's my goal, is to get going on that again, get in that space. But yeah, so
it's scary in the beginning, because you're thinking, oh my gosh, I'm actually going to do this, and then you start putting it off because it's like
right. Yeah, and I don't know about you, but those feelings come up of insecurity, will people really read this, or people really interested in what I'm writing about, and things like that, and or do I sound stupid, or all that kind of stuff. And so yeah, but anyway.
I've been there, done that, doing it again.
Okay. All right, Preston. Well, thank you so much. We've gone quite a while, and I don't want to keep you away from your day anymore. Happy 11/11 again. Happy Veterans Day, and I want to say that to everyone. Do you have any more words of wisdom quickly for our audience?
Have fun. That's what we're here for. Relax. Don't live in fear. You're safe. And if you don't believe in UFOs, I can tell you this is a very important subject. It's going to solve our environmental crisis, our energy crisis, our economic crisis. This is a really important subject. We're about to have a huge paradigm shift. Put on your seatbelt, because it is time for us to wake up, meditate, garden. That would be my advice. Have fun, meditate, garden, and get ready.
Yay. Awesome. Thank you so much.
And live in love and truth.
Definitely.
Love each other.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for being here again. Please subscribe. Please check out Preston's website. And he also has a YouTube channel. I subscribed yesterday, and I can't wait to see your videos, definitely. And like it, I'm sure you like that, push that button, because how could you not like this conversation? Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, and have a beautiful day.